Today's episode is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform for building a website. More on them in a bit. If you've followed this channel for any length of time, you'll know that the Soviet Union just did things a bit bigger. Ferris wheel-sized tanks, Typhoon-class submarines, and bombs that make Batman look like a firecracker. When it came to the military, size mattered to the USSR. It's no surprise then that when faced with the challenge of designing an amphibious landing craft to rival that of the United States, the Soviets came up with a truly ridiculous monstrosity, twice the size of comparable US designs and capable of carrying over 200 tons of men and equipment. This is the Zubr class air-cushioned landing craft, or LCAC. The Zubr-class LCAC, named after the Polish word for European bison, is a series of amphibious landing craft built by the Soviet Union and later by Ukraine in now Russian-occupied Crimea. They are the largest cushioned air vehicles on Earth, displacing up to 555 tons fully loaded. With only 10 examples currently in service, 4 in the Hellenic Navy, 4 in the PLA, the Chinese Navy, and the last 2 in Russia, the Zubr is one of the rarest amphibious vehicles in the world. By contrast, the US military's own LCAC, introduced in 1986, the same year as the Zubr, still numbers at least 80 in active service. One of the reasons for the Zubr's rarity is its cost, at least $78 million per unit, according to a 2009 agreement for Ukraine to produce 4 of the craft for the PLA. You can compare that to just $27 million for a finished American LCAC. What's more, it's likely that this price tag is just a starting point, as the vessel incorporates a huge arsenal of advanced weapon systems as well. And what weapons they are. 4 Strela 3 man-portable air defense missile system launchers and 32 anti-personnel missiles, 2 Strela 2 quad launchers capable of firing supersonic infrared rockets at a standoff distance of 6 kilometers or 3.7 miles, 2 AK-630 fully automatic rotary cannons with 6 barrels firing 5,165mm rounds per minute, and 2 A-22 Argon missile launchers with 132 incendiary warheads. Just to spice things up a little bit, the ship also carries 80 sea mines. In total, the Zubr carries at least 12,000 rounds of ammunition, 164 rockets, 56 tons of fuel, 3 fully armed main battle tanks or 10 armored vehicles, and up to 140 troops. It can alternatively carry up to 8 amphibious tanks or up to 500 troops in its cargo compartment, giving it the same passenger capacity as a Boeing 747. Despite its extreme size, the Zubr is also nimble. It's capable of negotiating 5-degree gradients on non-vehicle equipped shores and overtopping 1.6-meter vertical walls, that's 5 feet. It has a cruising speed of up to 55 knots, that's 102 kilometers per hour or 63 miles per hour. It accomplishes all of this power with 5 engines, each producing up to 10,000 horsepower. They've got 4 nitrous oxide superchargers and 3 variable pitch propellers. It has a range of up to 300 nautical miles, 560 kilometers, and boasts a suite of electronic warfare systems, including radar jammers, an MSS-227 chaff launcher, and decoys. So, hovercraft, unlike traditional amphibious vehicles, ride on a cushion of air produced by blowers under the hull. The benefit of riding on a cushion of air is much reduced friction with the surface of the water, as well as the ability to move across land, provided that the surface is not too steep. The Zubr uses 2 engines to provide lift, while 3 more produce thrust via the propellers. Another advantage of amphibious hovercraft is their relative imperviousness to mines on both land and sea. In addition to all this, the Zubr's superstructure is divided into 3 compartments, with armor capable of withstanding an EMP, electromagnetic pulse, either on its own or as the result of a nuclear blast. The ship is also fully airtight to protect against fallout and biological warfare. Its crew compartments are heated and air-conditioned, and there is a full mess facility and sleeping quarters on board. While there's precious little footage of the inside of a Zubr-class hovercraft, some still images have popped up over the years on defense industry blogs, with the photos taken of Russian military exercises or Chinese demonstrations. The images show a ludicrously massive battleship-like monster that disgorges tanks like some sort of giant Pez dispenser. Are you a creator looking to showcase your work online? Do you want an online presence that looks clean and professional, yet unique to your brand? Then today's sponsor, Squarespace, is the perfect solution for you. Squarespace offers stunning templates that you can personalize in minutes to reflect your creativity and style. With over 40 design templates, your website will look amazing on any device thanks to its mobile-ready, responsive designs. Creating a website from scratch has never been this easy. With Squarespace's easy-to-use drag-and-drop functionality, you can add text, photos, and more with no coding experience needed. What sets Squarespace apart from other website building solutions is their reputation for helping users create stunningly beautiful websites with tools that simplify the design process. Squarespace makes sure your photos look great on whichever device your users connect from. Plus, each website comes with built-in SEO tools like meta descriptions and keywords that help ensure that search engines can quickly find and properly index your site's content. And with automatic backups of all publishing activities, you can ensure that your website is secure and up to date at all times. Moreover, their industry-leading hosting platform guarantees fast loading speeds for visitors regardless of their location or web connection type. Plus, 24/7 customer service options available to you, as well as an extensive library of how-tos ranging from customizing elements to developing complex integration strategies. You'll always have the help and guidance needed when creating or managing your site. Check out squarespace.com/megaprojects for 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Get started right away on creating that professional website and stand out from the competition. And now back to today's episode. By the 1970s, the Soviet Union was looking to replace its aging fleet of American-designed amphibious vehicles, some of which dated back to the Second World War, having been given to the USSR as part of the Lend-Lease program. For decades, Russian-produced amphibious vehicles were heavily based on the Ford GPA Jeep, as the USSR had licensed this design. Examples included the GAZ-46 MAV, which began production in 1952, with at least 600 vehicles made and used by the Soviet military and its allies. You may recall the GAZ-46 from its appearance in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, or like some fans, maybe you'll just rather forget that. The Soviet military had reacted positively to the introduction of amphibious fighting vehicles, which the American military leadership had disliked. This is one of the reasons that most of the amphibious jeeps first built during World War II ended up in Soviet hands. The USSR's geography probably helped as well. Russia has access to some of the largest lakes and inland seas in the world, including the Black Sea, the Kara Sea, and the Sea of Azov. In addition, unlike their American counterparts, the Soviets always lacked deep water ports from which to launch large ships, which was a problem in the Baltic and the Sea of Japan that could be solved by large amphibious landing craft capable of deploying on top of ice in the winter and launching from a shallow port. As we've covered in previous videos, the Soviets also explored other creative options for these geographic challenges, including ground-effect seaplanes and even giant helicarriers. Due to the complexity of their defensive needs, the Soviets took the lead in hovercraft development for much of the 1950s to the 1980s. In the mid-1970s, over a decade of research began on Project 1232-2, what NATO called the Pomornik class, which would later be known as the Zubr. The Zubr was inspired by the success of the amphibious PTS, as well as the Aist-class assault hovercraft designed in 1965. These behemoth landing craft displaced over 300 tons at sea, fully loaded, and had a cargo capacity of 80 tons, which was enough for 4 light tanks, 2 medium tanks, or 3 APCs and 100 men. By 1986, the last of the Aist-class had been produced to make way for the Zubr, which ended up being nearly twice as large. The Zubr was a solution to a very tricky problem. The Russian Navy lacks deep water ports from which to launch traditional troop carriers, and yet it has thousands of kilometers of coastline to defend both within and outside mainland Russia. The Zubr's extreme size is meant to compensate for this difficulty, but it also brings complications of its own. Though it's fast and insanely powerful, the ship is complex to build, especially since the Russian military has had to rely on its own ability to produce parts since at least 2014. The Zubr also uses enormous amounts of fuel and requires constant maintenance. As a result, mass production of the Zubr has never really taken off. Oh, and did we mention that the Zubr vibrates so much that specialized shock-dampening materials had to be used inside its crew compartments? While it might seem that a ship that floats on a cushion of air would provide a smooth ride, that's just not the case. The constant vibration and hellacious noise of the engines make serving on a Zubr a challenge for any crew member. The Hellenic Navy did purchase 4 of these crafts in response to the challenges inherent in maintaining security over hundreds of separate islands. However, it seems to have regretted this decision as maintenance and replacement parts have proven excessive. Greece is still the only NATO member to field the Zubr, and it is likely to retire the craft in the coming years. Another problem with the Zubr's massive size is that it presents an enormous target for any land or sea-based defenses. As with oversized tanks, the larger a landing craft becomes, the greater the chance that a single point of failure can derail a whole mission. Thus, most modern special forces have chosen not to rely on such huge amphibious vehicles, preferring individual amphibious tanks and troop transports or inflatable landing craft. Still, the Russian government announced in 2017 that it would restart production of the Zubr. The announcement came just 3 years after the Russian annexation of Crimea, where the P.O. Moore shipbuilding company had produced Alcax for the Chinese Navy in 2009. However, despite this announcement, it seems that no Zubrs have since been produced. The announcement may have been nothing more than a publicity stunt, drummed up to create support among the inhabitants of Crimea for the ongoing Russian occupation of the territory. The future of the Zubr is now uncertain. With the existing models already having exceeded their planned service lives of just 16 years and with no replacement designs in sight, the Zubr may pass into history as a noble but mostly failed experiment in amphibious warfare.